Welcome back, and we're here to talk about Bradley Beal opting out of his $36 million player option. And the day that's looked imminent for the past 5 years is finally happening. Man,
Thank God.
thank God. Bradley Beal wasted so much of his prime. Dude was like 26 and asking for a trade, and then he just like, I'll just stay in Washington, I guess.
He's
Uh,
29 now, so the prime is starting to fade away. But I think a guy that can shoot like that can score like that, will always have a role in the NBA. So he won't be in too much trouble. But declined a $36 million player option, making him an unrestricted free agent. So he had two options. He could go sign a 5-year max in Washington, or he's going to go somewhere else now on a 4-year max, and that's the most he can sign with any team. And so, what are some teams that are potential contenders for Bradley Beal?
Off the top of my head, I'm thinking of teams like the 76ers, Denver
Yeah.
Nuggets, and then you can throw some wild cards in there. I really like the Charlotte Hornets, and I also really like the Pelicans, obviously for
Yeah.
reasons. You can look at my hat; it's a New Orleans Jazz hat, so don't get it twisted from the images. But I think those are four teams that I'd look out for. And then if you're looking for an under the radar team as well, besides Charlotte, I also like the Magic as well. I've been talking about. I think I said a couple episodes ago how I liked what the Magic were to do to trade or for a guy like Bradley Beal, because at that point didn't know what he was doing, and solidify or consolidate some of their young assets into a stronger roster, build around their young talent because they have so much there. So,
Yeah.
of those teams I mentioned, what would you say is like the best fit for him?
I think he would really thrive in Philly, and that's probably the best chance that he has to compete because he's been stuck in Washington for 10 years. He has not been competing. And a player of his caliber
Okay,
needs to
the
spend at
John
least.
Wall years were pretty good. Okay, that was like a 2 year four
Oh,
seed. Like
yeah. The
okay,
2 year stretch where they almost beat Boston and then they would have gotten swept by Cleveland. Okay, yeah, an Eastern Conference Finals.
that's pretty good.
But no, that's hella solid. But I think Philly gives him a really good chance to compete. Miami, he's been linked with for a while, so I think that gives him a chance to compete too. But a team that you didn't really mention and that unfortunately still wants to be back in the playoffs for some reason is Portland. They trade for Jeremy Grant. They're going to sign Damian Lillard potentially to a 2-year, $100 million extension. And then you go get a guy that can replace CJ McCollum, and you go out and get Bradley Beal, who would sign I'd say a pretty short deal with Portland. That'll get them back in the playoffs, in my opinion, but it's not enough to compete at all.
Dude, they already got their play. Anthony Simons. He showed so
That's
much
what I
promise. He
mean.
showed so
Yeah.
much promise. I wasn't even considering that. I'm not talking about options that I think he could do. I'm thinking options that would be best for him. Like
Best for him. Best for
let's
him.
talk
Go to a
about
contender.
the Pelicans for a second, or the Grizzlies. I think both these two teams would be really good fits or really good options for him. The Pelicans, what are they known as? Gritty defensive team with some pretty okay to poor perimeter shooting. What did Bradley Beal do? Instant injects
Perimeter shooting. Yeah.
into their backcourt, which is their backcourt has playmaking. Dyson Daniels, T.J. McCollum, Jose Alvarado. They play make, but they're not like the traditional shoot the lights out kind of guys. All those guys shoot like 30%.
Except for CJ, there's not really. And Zion, of course. There's not a perimeter player that's going to go out there and give you 30. So that's what Bradley Beal is going to do for you.
I
And
mean, when you
when it
got two
comes
paint
playoff,
players in Zion and Brandon Ingram scored 30 again,
oh,
so we
Ingram
fine.
could give you 30, but what I'm saying is like you need a guy with experience that could come up clutch, especially come playoff time in a competitive West. And really, Bradley Beal is going to be that guy. He's going to do that for you. So I think New Orleans would be a really good fit. Another team with that same identity is Miami, of course. I don't know how they would be able to manage the salaries of like Bam, Butler, and Beal,
Duncan
but
Robinson.
Duncan Robinson, but I don't think the salary cap exists anymore, just from what I've seen in the NBA free agency.
I'm looking at and there's all these things like you can't sign a player, you can't go over the salary cap to sign a player. Like, okay, how you can't make a trade unless it's like 100,000 above the cap. I'm like, dude, the entire NBA is over the cap. Like it doesn't matter. Like
No, they're deep into the luxury tax.
the Hawks are like 80 million over.
Yeah,
Like, well, I mean,
it's not,
the Pelicans are $30 million. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, the worst teams in the league are over at some point. So until I am proven that the salary cap exists, I'm gonna mention any team as a possibility because
Yes.
I think we've all seen, one, you could just pay your way out of it. Two, I don't know what like physical limitations are put on it. I'm not an expert. I'm not like I literally was recently like, why can't the team sign a player? And I don't understand why any team just couldn't just like sign a player.
How could you like? How did Golden State manage to sign Kevin Durant, a at that time a top three player?
Right.
For like, you're telling me that Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Kevin Durant were all on the same payroll in their primes? That is wild to me.
Ridiculous. Until proven, I don't believe the salary cap exists. And with that being said, give me your number one landing spot for Bradley Beal.